Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the Six Sided Podcast. I'm your host, the Taxman. I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm going to make this one a little bit shorter than the other ones have been. I've been pretty sick, if you can't tell by my raspy voice, for the past 5 or 6 days. So I'm going to try and gut this one out with the least amount of hacking and overall dry talk as possible. So again, thank you everybody for checking out our previous 3 episodes. If you haven't done so, you can check them out at www.soundcloud.com/sixsidedpodcast, or you can find us on YouTube. Just use the YouTube search banner or search option and type in Six Sided Podcast, and boom, you'll see all 3 of our previous episodes. I want to give a quick shout out to everybody who has followed us, or subscribe to us, I should say, on YouTube. Usually I would shout out those who have subscribed on YouTube. However, I've learned something, and that's if your profile is set to private, then I don't know who you are. So therefore I can't give you a shout out on the show. So if this is you, if your profile is set to private and you would like a shout out on the show, just shoot me a direct message and I will definitely make sure to get you a shout out on the show. And again, a big thank you to all of our new followers on Twitter. That's at 6_podcast. It's really blowing up the last few days, so I'm super thrilled about that and very excited to have you all along for the ride. And again, I want to give a quick shout out to my fellow content producers for WrestlingWithWrestling.com. Again, we will be dropping March 1st. That is at www.wrestlingwithwrestling.com. Covering all 4 corners of the ring. And trust me when I say, we are changing the game this year. 2018 is our year, and we're going to make this something special. So March 1st, www.wrestlingwithwrestling.com. Let's make it happen. Let's change the game. So just like my previous podcasts, I'm going to kick off the show with my 4 thoughts. And this week, actually, all 4 thoughts pertain to one subject. To start it off, my first thought is in regards to all of the talk lately about bringing back the Knockouts tag team titles. My thought is that I love the idea, actually. I think that in this new, we'll say, focused era of women's professional wrestling, it's probably the right time to do it. I do think that they have the talent available to do it. I'm not sure if the pool is deep enough yet to go for something like that, which brings me to my second thought, is how I would like to see them go about something like this. I would prefer they didn't do the usual cram everything into 2 tapings like they did with the tournament for the Knockouts title itself back in the tapings in Ottawa. I would much prefer that they run like an 8-team tournament spanning 4 to 6 Impact tapings and then culminating at a pay-per-view event. I don't think that the culmination of something this momentous should be done just on regular TV. I really do think that that should be either the main event or the semi-main event at a major pay-per-view, which brings me to my third thought. If you bring in that title, I think you need to get rid of a different one. This company is not big enough for 6 titles. Quite frankly, I think they have a hard time with managing 5 titles. So I think that if you're going to bring in the Knockouts division tag titles, you have to get rid of the other ones. So the easiest one for me, naturally, is the Grand Championship, because essentially now it's the same thing as the X Division title. So either amalgamating or scrapping or however you go about it, I think you can get rid of that title. That gives you some leeway that you can therefore bring in the new set of Knockouts tag titles. And lastly, my fourth and final thought in the matter is, if they are going to go about this, I really hope that they present it in a highly professional and highly meaningful way. And what I mean by that is, if there are Knockouts tag title matches, don't have the damn announcers talking over the matches about something that doesn't pertain to it. They need to do a better job of marketing these Knockouts, because honestly, a lot of them, nobody can touch them in women's professional wrestling, and that's the honest truth. So if you're going to go this route, there needs to be a better commitment from management A to promote them, and the announcing teams B to do a better job of putting them over during the TV tapings, and especially if this is going to culminate at a pay-per-view, which again was my previous idea. So those are my 4 thoughts on the matter. Obviously, I am all for it, and I hope that eventually they move in that direction. Hey man, 2018, no time like the present, as they say. So we'll move along to my review of this week's Impact. And like I said, hopefully my voice will make it through this entire show. So the show kicks off this week with a match featuring LAX and Cult of Lee. Stipulation of this match is that if Cult of Lee wins, they get a title shot against LAX, which is odd that you would have a contendership match against the champions. Yeah, it's a bizarre way to go about it. I kind of get why they did it, but yeah, it takes the heat out of the rivalry. If you're giving some of it now, why wouldn't you just give all of that match for the belt instead of having this match, some of the heat, and then conceivably the rest of it later? You should just save it all for one. I would rather have actually had the Cult of Lee, again, just go after a team of jobbers and again insult LAX, or maybe cut a promo on them after the match, although they can't really talk on the mic as they proved before, so maybe that's not such a great idea, but I digress. This match I thought was okay. I had a real big problem with the camera work in this match, actually. You had the match kick off with LAX actually jumping them, doing the baseball slides to the outside of the ring. There's a whole bunch of shenanigans outside the ring before the belt actually sounds, and we do get the match going on. There was a lot of double teaming here. They isolated Ortiz in the corner. Cult of Lee did isolate Ortiz in the corner for what seemed like forever, getting the heat on him, and the fans were super hot on the ref, actually. There was a 3 count at least twice in this match that were missed, whether the ref was counting fast and didn't realize or whatever, but it didn't look great and the fans caught it, and yeah, they were giving it to him. Eventually the match breaks down a little bit further. All 4 guys are in the ring, we're having pullouts, and eventually Trevor Lee grabs Ortiz's shorts, and by that I mean he basically pulls his shorts down on a schoolboy pin to get the 3 count to win the match and get their contendership match, I presume, next week against LAX. So again, the stip was odd. The match was okay. The camera work was terrible. And like I said, the fans took a dump on the ref. It was really bad. So a little bit of an odd way to start the show, but at least it started with a match. So our next matchup, we had Matt Sydal versus Petey Williams. That's for the Grand Championship. And this came to us from Destiny Pro Wrestling. And I don't know. I understand that they're showing matches from different promotions because they're trying to put over the working relationships with everyone. I think that this match would have been much better served at the Impact Zone in front of the Impact fans, and especially because of how they did the end of the match. So I'll get to that in a second. Overall, I thought this match was okay. Unfortunately, there's a bunch of edits, so you're not really sure what you missed. Probably not very much, although it did seem like they kept all the action inside the ring. Nice to see an actual reversal by Matt Sydal out of the Canadian Destroyer. That way, that move stays protected. I'm a huge fan of that. When Petey Williams hits that, man, that's just tremendous. So we ended up having Matt Sydal win the match to retain the championship, and then he proceeds to read a scroll. And the live crowd there obviously weren't clued in as to what was going on, because they were doing the what chants, and they're booing him, and just it was a big miss for me. But essentially, in a convoluted way, his, I guess, higher power, or whatever they're playing this off to be, issues that he's to challenge Ishimori for the X Division Championship at Crossroads on March 8th. Again, for an announcement like that, to do it at just essentially a random live show doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. You have 2 hours of Impact Television at your ring, basically your event. So why would you not show 2 hours of your product from your event instead of, your talent on other promotions. It's an odd way to do it. I especially didn't like it for this way of putting out challenge to Ishimori. So the only way I could see that making sense is if Ishimori has a different match tonight. But even then, still, I think you should have had it at the Impact Zone. Again, they're your bread and butter. That's your crowd. They know what's going on because these are tapings, and it's going to be the same crowd that's been there predominantly throughout those entire tapings. So they would be clued in as to what's actually going on instead of the live crowd who was obviously clueless as to what was going on. So following the match, we had a recap of Kongo Kong and Jimmy Jacobs destroying the Park and Park offices last week. And we get another really strong promo from Jimmy Jacobs. And the way that these are filmed, first off, is unbelievable in my opinion. I like the way that he off-looks the camera the whole time, and his cadence and the way he pronounces, body language, what he's not saying is almost more important than what he's saying. And like I said, the way he delivers his promo, these are spot on. And if you're trying to build an angle of monsters, which they're doing here, these are the way to go. I've been really impressed, so looking forward to seeing if the actual monster comes out this evening. Now, following a commercial break, we had Kongo Kong and Jimmy Jacobs go to the ring, and Jacobs cutting a promo, again calling out Abyss, and we had Grandma Jenny come to the ring, and a little back and forth was exchanged, if you will. The crowd was tremendous. Grandma Jenny. So I thought that was a nice touch. Ends up that she slaps the taste, if you will, out of Jimmy Jacobs' mouth, and he's motioning for Kongo Kong to take her out. And Joseph Parks waddles down to the ring. I found it odd that he wouldn't run down to the ring, but whatever, that's small nitpicking. And again, they have a little back and forth. He's saying basically that he promised that Abyss would never come out, and Jimmy Jacobs persists, and eventually you have Kongo Kong lay a beat down on Joseph Parks. So I thought it was an okay segment. I thought that if you're going to add juice anywhere in a promo like this is where, like, could you imagine if Kongo Kong's beating on him and he's bleeding and that's how Abyss comes out? Like, it would be such a strong visual and such a strong way to actually lead to the resurrection, if you will, of Abyss. So I thought that was a bit of a miss on it, but all in all, the build of this story, the way that they're going about it, nice and slow, taking their time and doing it properly. And again, Jimmy Jacobs is unbelievable. I cannot wait until this match actually happens. Coming over to the commercial break, we had another GWN Rewind, and actually they showed two different matches, both involving, well, one involving Eddie Edwards and Lashley with Moose interfering, and then the debut match of Moose. And again, I've made my thoughts clear on these quite a bit, so I'm not going to waste a bunch of time going into that again. So the next action we see is from an FSW show, and it's Moose versus El Patron. I believe that's from Vegas, and it looked like this was probably a pretty good match live. That crowd actually sounded pretty good. It was a no DQ match, and they almost went outside the building. I think that would have been spectacular if that match had spilled out onto the streets of Las Vegas, but for not being at the Impact Zone, you kind of lose a little bit of the, I don't know if you want to say luster, if that's the correct word, or maybe just like, and it's so cliche, but the impact of the match itself, that it's not held at the actual taping itself, just took a bit of everything away from me. So the match was okay. It wasn't great. For a no DQ match, it didn't look like they used a lot of gimmicks, which is mildly surprising considering the type of venue they were in. And we ended up seeing El Patron get the win over Moose via the double foot stomp off the top rope. So moving on with the show, we move into our second last match of the night, and it's a tag team match of OVE versus Eddie Edwards and Bobby Lashley. Just getting back to the events from last week, when we had OVE giving Lashley a beat down and Eddie Edwards with a save. I thought this match was actually really good. I really do like OVE as a tag team. The way they move in the ring, the way they interact with each other, just the way they work in general, I really think they're just a tremendous tag team. And seeing Eddie Edwards in the ring again is a real treat. He spent so much time in Pro Wrestling Noah. I really haven't seen him on Impact TV working in quite a while, so this was a nice one. Match begins with Lashley cleaning house, and as we move through the match, we have Eddie Edwards getting just pummeled by both members of OVE, and they're pulling out all the stops. Illegal tags, Callahan's running interference. He's slamming Eddie Edwards into the ring apron from the outside. Lashley can't do anything because he's tied up with the ref. Ref, obviously has no idea what's going on. And eventually, Eddie Edwards makes a hot tag, and Lashley comes in and... Sorry, that was Lacey. Lashley does these overhead throws of the Chris brothers, and he doesn't even... Lashley himself moves like nothing, and he throws these guys about 4 feet in the air higher than he is. It was an incredible sight to see. And just the finish of this match was Eddie Edwards getting the pin. This is after actually both the Chris brothers are on the outside, and Lashley gives the old slingshots Eddie Edwards into the ropes, and he comes through the ropes with a huge tope and just brutalizes both the Chris brothers. So again, this match was really good, I thought. A lot of fun, and again, I just think OVE as a tag team is something to watch, and again, seeing Eddie Edwards in the ring was a real treat. Now in our final match of the evening, we had Johnny Impact versus EC3, and Johnny Impact was putting his number one contenders stip on the line, and I thought that this was a pretty good match, mostly because of Johnny Impact, and this guy is honestly just incredible to watch every time. For somebody his size in terms of height and just stature in general, the way that he moves in the ring, the way he comes off the ropes, the way that he dives, the way that he comes off the top, the way he sells, he's one of the best. There's no other way to put it. They had some great spots here, actually. Again, Johnny being Johnny. And actually, the best spot that I saw from him was something I'd never seen. He threw EC3 in the corner at one time. He was all hot after taking a bunch of interference from both Tyrus and him. That being EC3. And gets EC3 in the corner and just starts feeding in punches and elbows, and he's throwing kicks, and just I've never seen that form of aggression and that type of aggression from Johnny Impact before. So again, I thought that this match was a pretty good showcase of why Johnny Impact is one of the best in the business. EC3 was okay. It was better than a few matches that he's had this past few tapings. Definitely the bright spot for him was off the top rope. Does a huge high impact move off the top rope. Looked really nice. And but to no avail, as Johnny Impact ends up getting the win with Starship Pain and retains his number one contendership. So all in all, I have to say that this episode of Impact was actually fairly disappointing, just in the standpoint of the quality of the previous 3 episodes. Part of that for me is using the footage from other promotions, and the other part is just some of the filming that was done this episode I wasn't really a fan of. So was it a bad show? No, but definitely not on par with the previous 3, and completely didn't hold a candle to the last week's show, which I thought that was the best one. So those are my thoughts on this week's Impact. Alright, before I get out here for the night and rest my weary voice, again, thank you everybody for sticking with us. I'm sure it doesn't sound the greatest. Not that I think that my voice sounds the best anyways, to me personally. I'd bury myself a little bit there, but again, thank you, and hopefully I'll be all nicely rested and healed, if you will, for the next episode. So just in closing, I'm going to plug our social media. So first off, you can listen to the show on SoundCloud at www.soundcloud.com/sixsidedpodcast. You can find us on YouTube Please like and subscribe to us on YouTube. It would really mean a lot. Again, you can find us on YouTube using the using the YouTube search bar and typing in Six Sided Podcast. You can also go ahead and find us on Twitter, and please do that. That's at 6_podcast. I love interacting with everybody. There's been some great back and forths, and like I say during every show, if you want to be part of the show, if you want to review segments for the show, or if you have questions for the show, if you want to be on the show, hit me up on Twitter. You can email me on Gmail, 6sidepod@gmail.com. Again, there's no numbers in there. That's 6sidepod@gmail.com. And drop us a line. I'd love to hear from you, and I really do mean it when I say I get back to each and every one of you. So thank you all again for your support. It truly means a lot. And before I head out here for the evening, I just want to mention again, WrestlingWithWrestling.com. Check us out March 1st. I have a new show that will be debuting as well. Working out the bugs on that one, so hopefully that's good to go for March 1st. But the site itself will be ready to go. WrestlingWithWrestling.com. So with that being said, I'm your host, the Taxman, saying, take care of yourselves and each other. Good night, everybody.